We all know Baelin the Fisherman from the epic NPC Man series. We've seen him across its 10-year long run, he got his own short film, and now even has his own video game. As it is the 10-year anniversary of Epic NPC Man and the 5-year anniversary of Baelin's route, it got me thinking about what else Baelin might be getting up to. So that's why today we figure out, can you beat Skyrim as Baelin the Fisherman? Firstly, we have to establish the rules of the challenge. The rules of the challenge are pretty simple. I must only use fishing gear and things Baelin would have access to. I must complete the Fishing Questline and catch all fish at least once, and complete the main questline in Skyrim. This is a list of the fish I have to catch, noting ones that are rare fish that require special circumstances to be caught. I've actually never done the Fishing Questline before, so this should be interesting. After getting through the opening cutscene, I had to make Baelin. I did my best with the limited options Skyrim provides, aptly named him and got on my way. Running through Helgen, I chose to go with Ralof. I don't think it really matters, but I do think Baelin would potentially side with the Stormcloaks as a true son of Azurim. I don't have any fishing gear yet obviously, so after admiring his large muscles, I get to work showing off Baelin's little known boxing skills. He specialises in the suplex move, and he's so strong in fact he hits hard enough to make enemies pass through solid objects. After escaping Helgen, I start to make my way down to Riverwood. Still with no gear, I attempt to face off with some bandits, but I just end up relying on Ralof's heroics to get me past them. At the first standing stones, I go with the Warrior Stone. Obviously the Mage Stone would be useless to me as I won't be using any magic, and the Thief Stone could maybe be handy, but it isn't Baelin's forte, so I go with the Warrior Stone. I end up encountering some wolves on my way to Riverwood, and I just so happen to contract Rock Joint, which means my melee is 25% less effective. I think you'll be disappointed at how long it takes me to remember this is an effect and to get it cured. Finally in Riverwood, I get to the first fishing location. I quickly grab the fishing rod and get to work. The first catch is disappointing to say the least, but with my second attempt I catch a River Betty and tick the first fish off the list. After a bit more fishing, I catch a spadefish and make my way to the Riverwood trader for some fishing gear. I admire my new look and I'm off to Whiterun. On the way I encounter a wolf and I get to test out the fishing rod for the first time. It only does 2 damage right now, but I can take on 1 wolf at a time. I proceed to pretend to help the companions with a giant, then I do a small bit of fishing before proceeding into Whiterun, where I catch a juvenile crab and a pogfish. After performing some gymnastics on Jarl Bolgrif's head, I get the next quest and head to Bleak Falls Barrow. There are some bandits outside which I do admittedly have some difficulties with. Can't seem to take on more than 1 enemy at the time for the moment, considering I have literally 0 armor, but eventually I do get past them and inside. I proceed to mostly run past the Draugr until I reach Arvel. The frostbite spider can take me out in literally 2 hits with its poison, so I end up strategically hitting it to slow it down slightly in one spot, run past, break down the webs. Arvel is surprisingly easy to deal with and goes down with a lavish display of his undergarments. Travelling further into the dungeon, I decide the ethically right thing to do is attempt at least one one-on-one fight with a restless Draugr. Unfortunately, I am not built for this. It takes a considerable amount of time and patience to make one swing, doing almost no damage, and then stepping back to dodge, and then repeating that over and over. Considering they have 175 HP and I'm doing less than 2 damage right now, you can imagine just how insane this was driving me. I eventually make it to the Draugr Overlord, and this fight seriously took me 20 minutes alone. I had to constantly run around and jump up on ledges to hopefully hit down on him and then dodge in time if I was lucky. I eventually got the job done, and as you can see from how much I'm smacking him after death, how simply done I was with this. Moving on from Bleak Falls Barrow, it was time to face the first dragon out by the Western Watchtower. I was honestly not much help here, only being able to take 1 hit before being absolutely decimated by the dragon. Thankfully the NPCs took aggro and I was able to get some hits in and help with the final blow. After that, it's time to head up to High Hrothgar. It is literally only here that I remember that I have Rock Joint. I've been doing 25% less damage for this whole time. That means I've been doing less than 2 damage. So I go and get that fixed up, and then I proceed up High Hrothgar. It is time for the bane of everyone's Skyrim playthrough, the Frost Troll. As you can imagine, this was ridiculous. I mean, look at how little damage I'm doing. I tried to beat him fair and square for a little while, but you can see just how futile this was. I needed to get creative. I didn't want to use any glitches with enchanting, which is what a lot of people seem to suggest online. So I went the route of getting damage and paralysis poisons. This would allow me to get him incapacitated and deal some extra damage at the same time. I figured this would be a good point to start the fishing questline properly. Hopefully this would take me on some quests to build up my levels and strength. So I head to Riften, for some reason encounter a dragon inside the city walls, and then I make my way down to the Riften fishery. Firstly, I meet with Varia. She is the main quest giver for the fishing questline, giving the quests that actually precede the storyline. She first asks me for a juvenile mud crab, which I happen to already have, so I hand that over. And I also meet with the Argonian named Swims in Deep Water, which, sure, his name checks out. His quests consist of a list of fish to catch and random bounties. The first bounty is cleaning up the streams that flow through Markarth. So I arrive, I stop a murder with my trusty fishing rod, and then I proceed to be the environment's best friend, picking up dwarven metal out of the water. I do also happen to catch a brook bass and a salmon in the process, ticking more off the list. I hand in the bounty, make my way for a little bit more fishing outside Markarth, and then it's back to Riften. Here I managed to catch a silverside perch, a slaughterfish, and a glassfish. The glassfish is actually for the next quest, so I head to Falkreath and hand that in to Zaria. Checking in with Varia, her mudcrab, now named Snippy, is coming along nicely. And she gives me a quest to get a goldfish for Mila Valentia. So I go to catch a goldfish, but instead I get an Abyssinian longfin. I try to level up a bit more before facing the frost troll once again. I haven't forgotten about the main questline yet. So I headed to Embershire Mine, I get some fighting in, and I also do some underground fishing, where I catch a hiscarp, direfish, and a tripod spiderfish. I prepared the last of my poisons, and now I'm ready for the frost troll. As you can see, this really does work a treat to just pummel on the helpless troll. After he is defeated in a very fair way, I meet with the Greybeards. I learn to yell really good, and then randomly get attacked by some hired thug. I have never had this happen before at High Hrothgar, but the Greybeards absolutely demolished this guy. It's brutal to watch. Of course, now is the most appropriate time for the cultists of Mirak to show up. Thankfully this happens to me in Whiterun, so the guards could help, because I'm not sure I would be able to deal with this on my own. Still following the main questline, I make my way to Ustengrav. On the way I stop in another dungeon, and I just really wanted to include this funny moment. A skeleton gets absolutely side-blinded by a trap that smashes him into a million tiny little pieces. In Ustengrav, I can feel that I'm actually getting stronger with the fishing rod, as I level up and put points into one-handed and sword skills. I have to use a shout here to progress the dungeon, and it's not like I have to stay 100% true to Baelin's in-law abilities, but rather if Baelin was in Skyrim. I burn up a little bit trying to get through the traps, but I do eventually make it to the end and find Delphine's note. After clearing Ustengrav, I remembered that I have to go catch a goldfish, so I do that, I deliver it to Mila, and then I do a bit more fishing. I do have to embrace the Baelin lifestyle after all. Whilst fishing, I end up catching the Ring of Kinnereth, which causes rainstorms to occur whilst worn when fishing. So I immediately test it out, and with that I catch a pygmy sunfish, a cyrodiilic spadetail, and a catfish. The next fishing quest is to attend a fishing contest. I also receive a letter from Mila asking for a second goldfish because her first one is lonely, and honestly, I can't blame her for asking for another. That's a really good reason. So I get back to fishing, and in the process I catch a carp, an arctic grayling, and an arctic char. I also happen to catch another ring. This time it's Denstagma's ring, which provides an extra 20% resistance to fire, frost, and shock, which it sounds probably helpful against dragons, but I wonder if I'll actually remember to wear it. By this point I've caught enough fish for the next quest from Swims in Deep Water, which is now to catch fish in the rain. So I go back to fishing and I manage to catch out of the water a Skyrim special. A game crash. You know what, it's maybe a bit surprising that I made it this far without a crash. With a restart, I'm back in the game, fishing in the rain, and catch a pearlfish. Just another one to tick off the list, which is getting kind of close to finishing at this point already. I hand in my second goldfish to Mila, she shows me her very well hidden treasure behind Dragon's Reach, And then my next quest is to catch a lucky fishing hat that swims in deep water lost. When I go to find that, I also just get to enjoy the nature of Skyrim. It is truly a relaxing activity. After handing in the next quest, I get rewarded with an upgraded fishing rod, the Argonian fishing rod, which does a base level of 4 damage, and with my extra skills now, I'm at 8 points of damage. I've really come a long way since that measly 2 damage. At this point I remember I have a fishing contest to attend, so I go do that. Brutius is my challenger, and he seems kinda rude. Turns out he is, and he tries to kill me. But he's stupid, so he doesn't realise that I'm Baelin, the goddamn fisherman, so I take him out, and I find out he has a special ring, so I go and get that. It's the Warlock's ring, which provides a spell ward when blocking, faster movement speed, and faster health regeneration, which is pretty handy. After that, the next quest is to deal with some mud crabs, and honestly this was way harder than I thought it would be. Turns out if I'm fighting more than one at a time, it's honestly impossible. I tried to enlist the help of the nearby Dawnstar guards, but it took 2 of them just to deal with 1 mud crab. So after defeating a few mud crabs, I figured I should go level up some more before returning. So I go back to the main questline, and Delphine and I witness a dragon resurrection, and to be fair here, Delphine did most of the heavy lifting with this fight. I did at least get an epic shot of absolutely nothing as I defeated the dragon though. Next it was on to the Thalmor Embassy. I got to introduce myself as Baelin the Fisherman, and then I proceeded into the back to deal with the Thalmor soldiers. I could deal with them one at a time, but as soon as I was fighting 2 or 3, I couldn't win. So my strategy was to split them up, which worked. I discovered the information about Esbern, I defeated the rest of the Thalmor, and then I got out of there. Into the Ratway next, I was getting better at taking on the enemies, eventually making my way to Esbern and convincing him to leave his hidey hole. Esbern tells me he wants to go to Skyhaven Temple, so off we went. He really took his time taking in all of the sites on offer. Eventually, Delphine tells me I have to get more information from the Greybeards. So I go there, they end up yelling at me a lot, and then I go meet Parthenax. He of course sends me to go get the Elder Scroll, so I go see the crazy guy Septimus Cygnus, and then he sends me to Blackreach, and I was not looking forward to doing Blackreach. I managed to take on the Dwarven Spiders pretty easily, but I cannot deal with the Falmer because they hit so hard. And I don't even bother trying with the Dwarven Spheres. I attempted some parkour to get around the enemies, which really doesn't work out in my favour, so instead I end up just opting for running past everything. This doesn't really turn out well for me, because they just chase me down. By a stroke of luck, I do manage to make it all the way through eventually, and reach the bottom of Blackreach. I run through, I make it to where the Elder Scroll is, and I complete Baby's first puzzle. Once I'm done with that, I know that the first fight with Alduin is up next, so I figure I need to level up some more before I do that. It's at this point that I go back to the Fishing Questline to deal with the remaining mud crabs. Which, with some patience, I'm actually able to deal with now. But seeing them take on a frost troll and win really had me frightened during this fight. As a reward for defeating them, I get the Alakir rod, which is as strong as the Argonian rod, but it's nice to have. The next quest is to defeat a Hawker, and on the way I also get a quest about catching more fish. The Hawker is actually really strong, and turns out it had eaten a vampiric ring and was constantly casting the Drain Life spell on everyone around it. So after turning in that quest, the next is to be a fishing tutor. Apparently all that takes is just doing some fishing, the student making some random comments, and then hey presto, I've tutored. I go to catch the next set of fish, which includes swimming in the Windhelm docks to catch cod, and fishing up in the north at Pilgrim's Trench to catch an angler larvae. Next up is catching some fish underground, and fishing up some items dropped in the river by the Khajiit caravan. A very unique, let's say, dragon shows up and attempts to stop me from fishing. It eventually goes away, and I fish up the items and hand them into the Khajiit caravan. They actually give me a unique ring that helps with sneak and allows the wearer to cast the hide spell. Maybe a bit racist, Todd, but cool nonetheless. Onto the underground fish, I go back to Embershard Mine and I catch a glassfish, a scorpion fish, and a vampire fish. The next fishing quest is to prepare a seafood feast and to catch the rarest fish Skyrim has to offer. I managed to catch an angelfish at the Riften Fishery, a lyre-tail anthias at the river outside Whiterun, and an angler back at Pilgrim's Trench. I hand in the quest, finishing it, now having caught all 29 fish, and I receive a dagger as a reward. It's cool and unique, but I don't think I'll use it. I get to cooking as I prepare a seafood feast consisting of cooked Arctic char, crab stew, and a steamed mud crab leg, which Gisli chows down on. Up next, Varia needs me to look into some dwarven fishing, which leads to discovering the schematics for a dwarven fishing rod. I convinced Calselmo in Markarth to craft it for me. Not sure why I couldn't have just done this myself, because as a reward for finishing the quest, not only do I receive the dwarven fishing rod, but I also learn how to do dwarven smithing. The dwarven fishing rod is particularly good at catching dwarven objects out of the water, which I use to my advantage and fish out the missing pieces of a dwarven contraption. With the contraption now complete, it raises a chest out of the water, presenting me with my reward. Most importantly in the chest are the Oakenthund war axes of fire and freezing. At this point I figured Baelin would take this. It's his ultimate level up moment, where he's able to take on anything, and honestly, being realistic for a moment, this was getting way too hard and tedious of a challenge, using the fishing rod for everything. I figured the axes being a part of the fishing questline make them fair game. I wanted to test them out, so I took down some dwarven spiders with ease, and then took on a nearby dragon. With the dual wielding hits, this just became a whole new game for Baelin. Viria wrote to me urgently needing help fighting some more mud crabs. Turns out we were waging a war against the sea creatures with catapults and barriers set up. First up were waves of mud crab attacks, which again I was still having trouble because I still had literally no armor, and I was getting swarmed by these mud crabs. So I just did a lot of running around, peppering in some small hits here and there. After those waves of attacks, a massive ghost mud crab appears, and it can literally one-shot me. So that's fun. Beating it requires picking up explosive flaming pots from dead mud crabs, and then using the catapults to fire them at the huge mud crab. Unfortunately at one point I die, and then I realized I've actually soft-locked myself into an endless loop of deaths. I eventually managed to pause in time to take some health potions and get out of there. After collecting and firing enough flaming pots, I take down the massive mud crab and claim victory over the sea creatures. With a letter from the courier, it looks like Varia needs us one last time. She wants to start a stall in the Riften Market. So I collect the materials required to build the stall and head over. This concludes the fishing questline, receiving Varia's charm as a final reward, which has some great benefits, but best of all, gives me a little bubble effect, which is very cute. With that, there's nothing left to do but go fight Alduin. So I go learn Dragonrend and I take him on. Which, thank God I have these axes, because this would have been impossible with a fishing rod. I defeat Alduin, and now it is time to play babysitter. Everyone knows this is super boring, and just to prove that it took so long, I ended up AFK spinning. After that thrilling event, we go catch a dragon, achieving new heights of excitement for Baelin. Turns out the dragon is very convincing, and we immediately release it. But we've become very good friends in this 1 minute of conversation, and the dragon agrees to fly me up to Skuldafn. This place is filled with dragons and Draugr, which at this point in the game, I can mostly take on. The Draugr Wight did prove to be difficult, but with some strategy I could manage. There is a dragon priest at the end of this area, which was surprisingly easy to take down, and I really don't know why. I took a brave leap into Sovngarde, met Sun, and proceeded to rock his world. So obviously, he lets me into the Hall of Valor, where I rallied up the troops and immediately did a 180 to go finish off Alduin. As always, this fight was easier than the first one, with the extra help. So yes, you can beat Skyrim as Baelin the Fisherman from Epic NPC Man. This started out a lot harder than I imagined, but got really easy with the use of real weapons. I do not recommend this build, and my review of the fishing questline after doing it for the first time is meh.